Coming up, a Sicangu Lakota citizen leads a land-grant university, a first for South Dakota State. We learn why hemp is being called the intelligent plant. And an Indigenous costume designer takes the stage. I am Aaliyah Chavez. Join us for those interviews and much more from the ICT Newscast.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.
Arizona State University welcomes 3,500 Indigenous students from Arizona and across the nation. It serves one of the largest populations of Indigenous students among U.S. colleges and universities. We created a sense of place for tribal nations to create futures of their own making through community outreach and research, taught by world-class Indigenous faculty where they see a reflection of themselves and their experiences. Find community at ASU.
This is the ICT Newscast with Aaliyah Chavez.
Omerao Hopa. Thank you for joining us. Indigenous issues took center stage this week at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. The president of the National Congress of American Indians, Fawn Sharp, attended the event with more than 3,000 leaders from government and business. She told world leaders that Indigenous knowledge and lands are key elements in a global strategy on climate change.
The very place where my ancestors signed our treaty is now underwater. And we are not alone. Indigenous peoples all across the planet are on the front lines. And so I think when you look at the scale of that crisis of global injustice for centuries, one might think that we are weak and vulnerable. But I want to make it very clear here today, to the contrary, Indigenous peoples are not weak and vulnerable. We are strong. We are resilient. We have in our DNA ancestral knowledge that goes back from that very first generation that was called to planet Earth.
Sharp was on a panel called Leading the Charge Through Earth's New Normal and called on world leaders to prevent the destruction of Oak Flat by Resolution Copper in Arizona.
I personally have come in the last 4 months face to face with sacred sites at Oak Flat, entering that sacred place where the San Carlos Apache people leapt to their death, and I felt the thunder.
The town of Davos is hosting 52 heads of state for its annual meeting in the Swiss Alps. A lost portrait of a legendary Lakota leader is set to be auctioned off in Florida. On March 18th, Blackwell Auctions will offer a painting of one of the most historically important figures of the 19th century of Chief Sitting Bull. The dynamic leader united his people to defeat U.S. General George Armstrong Custer at the Battle of Greasy Grass in 1876. His portrait is one of 4 paintings created by a New York artist and is believed to be the only one still in private hands. A new exhibit at the Big Cypress Indian Reservation in Florida showcases modern takes on traditional Indigenous art from the region. The Art of Seminole Crafts features jewelry, dolls, traditional fashion, and basket weaving. ICT senior producer Vincent Moniz has this story.
In Florida, a new exhibition celebrating Indigenous traditional crafts is taking place at the Atathiki Seminole Indian Museum. One piece featured in the new exhibit is a bandolier basket by artist Brian Zepeda. The artist says he's just one of 2 people in the state who have revived this tradition. These bags were worn by Seminole leaders as a symbol of leadership and were used to carry medicine and tobacco.
Bandolier bags, a lot of them are associated with the Second Seminole War because a lot of the paintings and descriptions from that time period you'll see are people wearing them, mostly the men, wearing the bandolier bags. The bandolier bags were prominent in a lot of our leaders. It was, a sign of leadership.
Wilson Bowers, a mixed media artist based in nearby Hollywood, Florida, has a painting featured in the exhibition. Representing a younger generation of Seminole artists, he makes items like skateboards, murals, and digital artworks. In much of his work, he includes Seminole motifs, but he is equally inspired by pop art and anime. Bowers says some of his inspiration comes from other Indigenous artists at Big Cypress, where he was raised.
I get a lot of inspiration from, my community. You got all the doll makers, you got all the basket makers, you have all the beaters. There's a lot of seamstresses, so there's a lot of inspiration like from within the community that, you know, they express themselves in that way. And my way is painting.
Visitors to the exhibit are also able to view other permanent shows, which explore many parts of traditional Seminole life. One of the big goals the museum has is to display more modern Seminole artists like the ones in this current show. In Bismarck, North Dakota, Vincent Moniz, ICT News.
A Pueblo nation in New Mexico has announced plans for a new and much-needed facility for Native youth. Santo Domingo Pueblo says it has plans to build a child care center and has hired Roma Architecture to help get the job done. The Pueblo currently offers child care services, but they are limited to 20 children from ages 2 to 5. The new center will allow Giwa Pueblo to serve even more children, ranging from birth to age 13. The mock-up designs of the facility feature what's called hyper-modern elements and lots of outdoor space. It is expected to open in the fall of 2024. And those are the headlines for the ICT Newscast. Cattle ranching means a lot to the president of South Dakota State University. After graduating from SDSU, Barry Dunn managed his family's ranch on the Rosebud reservation. He's believed to be the first enrolled citizen of a federally recognized tribe to lead a land-grant university. I interviewed him last week and asked him what land stewardship means for tribes.
We have very large land tribes that own a great deal of land in South Dakota. We have 9 tribal nations, and they control millions of acres. And so the management of that land is critically important for generations to come, but also for current revenue into tribal governments and tribal people. Right now, you know, I think what I think I've learned from my grandfather, who was a cattle rancher and Indian cowboy, was stewardship of the resources, and that's been a big part of my life and my mission when I worked in extension, but also when I was a rancher myself. So I think stewardship of the resources that we have is absolutely critical.
What are the ways that your institution are working on initiatives like this?
Well, the major initiative we have is related to the whole university. It's called the Wokini Initiative, which is generally translates into a new beginning. So when I became president, we committed as a university to start anew and serve the indigenous people of South Dakota in a much more appropriate way and inclusive, and so increase attendance here at SDSU by tribal citizens, but also outreach and extension. Just the whole holistic approach to serving these people is very, very important to us, and we renewed that commitment, our land grant commitment to serve all the people of South Dakota equitably, and so that's our major initiative.
President Dunn, I'm curious about learning about your personal experience. How does one become the president of SDSU?
Well, yeah, I really didn't set out to be the president, but I really kind of stand on the shoulders of my mother, who long ago attended, you know, she was born, she wasn't even a citizen in the United States, and yet somehow, some way, she was born on the Rosebud and was a member of the tribe, and found a way to college during the Depression, and then you know, set our family on a very strong path. And it was in contrast to several of the path that several of her brothers took, which was quite destructive. So that you know, it was very poignant growing up that she had taken the right path, and education was the major part of that. And so I followed in education, and just I love learning, and followed her footsteps, and I find myself honored to be not only a citizen of the Rosebud Sioux tribe, but also the president of a land-grant university. So it's very, very humbling and very exciting for me.
I actually would like to talk about land-grant universities. For our viewers who might not know what that is, tell us about it.
Well, in 1862, President Lincoln signed the Land Grant Act, and which provided land resources to state and public universities, and that was a good thing. Public education is very important for all of us. I'm a big believer in public education. The irony is, of course, that the land that was given to these public universities was somebody else's land. And so when I became president, I called out the fact that in 1889, when South Dakota became a state, in enabling act of statehood, the federal government gave this university land. And that land, of course, had come from the breakup of the Great Sioux Reservation, which really was culminated in the Dawes Act of 1887. So I've pledged, and with support from the entire university, we spend the resources that we receive annually from that land, we spend that money to benefit the heirs from whom the land had been taken so very long ago. So it's more than just a nice thing to do. We think it's absolutely critical that we find ways to better serve these wonderful students that we have from the tribal nations of South Dakota. And so we're dedicating those resources annually to benefit those young people.
That was Sicangu Lakota citizen Barry Dunn. Hemp, that's what a few tribes and some private organizations are growing as an alternative for things like fuel, textiles, and even food. Patty Talahongva has this interview with Marcus Grignon, who took over a hemp project started by the late John Trudell.
This is the third year Mark Grignon has planted hemp seeds. It's all part of the process to breed out the THC levels in the seeds, so to prepare them for a variety of uses. Mark Grignon is the director of the Hempstead Project Heart. Thank you for joining us, Mark. Tell us how you got into this line of work.
Thank you, Patty. Yeah, I would say it was about 2015. I moved back to Wisconsin, and I was trying to figure out what to do with my education. And so I got a fellowship through the American Indian College Fund, and I was doing research around sustainable agriculture. And my Menominee tribe came to me and was like, we want you to grow hemp. And so that's kind of how I got into hemp. And so as the growing season went by, we started to see a lot of issues with federal overreach. And so basically what happened is they were basically threatening to raid us in 2015 on the Menominee homelands, and I was like, that's not going to happen. And so I reached out to the good late John Trudell, and I was like, we need your help. Can you help us? And basically that's kind of how I got into hemp. Was my tribe was looking for an economic engine that was not gaming, and something that was doing something to help the planet and sustain the environment. And so that's kind of how I really got into hemp, and it's been a wild ride ever since. And I got to meet John before he passed, and he basically turned Hempstead over to me and said, I want you to build a education campaign to bring back hemp. It's going to start in Wisconsin on the Menominee Indian Reservation, and I want you to lead it. And that's how that happened. And 4 days later, he passed away, and I took the dying man's last wish and I brought it to a reality. So it's been a fun ride.
And it sounds like it's been filled with a lot of challenges, and also this process of planting seeds so that each time you plant, you weed out that those THC levels. Talk a little bit about that process and where you are now in the whole picture of actually planting hemp that you can turn into products.
Mm-hmm. So where we are right now is, when it comes to developing seed, and that's something we were trying to do in 2015, but all of our crop was taken from us. So in 2020, we started with a variety that was actually donated to us by a local hemp farmer who was really, he was really compassionate about what happened to us, really didn't like what happened to us. And he says, I want to help you. And so we took those seeds, they were just land-raised varieties, feral hemp, and we just grew and observed it. And, through the College Menominee Nation, the research that we were doing through the college, we had a little bit of a wiggle room to kind of test this stuff out, see where it was going. It was not going into the market, so we could just basically, once we were done with it, it would, we had to burn it. And in terms of how we do our process, in terms of dealing with the seed, is basically we just let Mother Nature take its course, because the hemp plant is a very intelligent plant where wherever it goes, it's going to be adapting to that environment. So, if there is a high level THC in that plant the first year, I'm starting to see that it starts going down more and more. And not only that, we'd take seed at different times. So like in the beginning of when the seed starts forming, we take a little bit of that. We take some of the seed, closer to harvest time. And then when the frost happens, because we really want to see like, how is this plant interacting with the natural environment? And so that was kind of how we've been developing it. We don't do it in a greenhouse. We don't do it in a lab. We do it with Mother Nature, and we do it with soil, and that's kind of how we do it. And basically how I pick the characteristics is I see, well, how tall is the plant? Is it bushy? Is it not bushy? Really what we're looking for is a tall plant with a really nice stalk that shouldn't be bigger than your finger. And that's kind of how we determine it. And the reason why we determine it by like the size of the finger is that if you run it through a processing machine, like a fiber mill, for instance, if it's really like stalked like this big, like it's not going to go through well. And something that we're really doing right now is we're really developing seed for the Great Lakes region, because there's really no crop, there's really no variety that is available specifically for the Great Lakes region. And that's how a lot of the hemp industry is dealing with this hemp seeds shortage, because everything's coming internationally. There's really no domestic seed. And that's kind of our process of how we're really trying to do is develop the seed, but then also create a space where we can have, bio-based products. We can have food. I mean, hemp is, high in omega-3s, omega-6s. It has all your essential amino acids, and 1 tablespoon packs 10 grams of protein. So, I mean, when we look at like a superfood that can handle climate change, that probably only needs, 10 inches of rainfall, if not less, because I do all dry farming. And then it can withstand tornadoes. I mean, there is a stalk that you can see that's just really big and real long. And it's just like, it got knocked over by the tornadoes, but then somehow it just came back up. And I've seen that twice now. The plant is so resilient.
It's a fascinating process to see how you are working with the seeds to get them to a point where you can turn them into other products. So we'll follow your process and your harvest, and catch up with you at another time. Mark Grignon, the director of the Hempstead Project Heart, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Patty. It's been an honor.
That was Marcus Grignon of Hempstead Project Heart. As a youngster, Raphael Regan spent time hanging out in the costume shop while his mother went to college to earn her degree in theater. In that space, he found his love for sewing, and it planted the seeds for a career as a freelance costume designer. Here's part of an interview from last week.
I knew growing up that I did not want to be in a cubicle, sitting in an office, working a 9-to-5 job, staring at a computer all day. So kind of, yeah. It wasn't until, I got involved with, experienced with the costume shop that I was like, oh, this is what I want to do, is to tell stories through costumes.
Tell us the kinds of plays that you've worked on.
I've worked on a bunch of plays, mainly modern dramas, and a lot of them also recently have been doing with Native American history, specifically Sovereignty, which was a historical drama about sovereignty with the Native nation, specifically the Cherokee Nation, and how today we still struggle with, having our own sovereignty, and the struggles of our ancestors, and how that still is with us today.
Tell us a little bit about what goes into designing a costume. I imagine that it's a lot of work.
Yes, it is a ton of work. But it first starts with a lot of meetings with, the director. If it's a new play, the playwright will be involved. And then it also deals with all the other production design elements. So the set designers, the lighting designers, the sound designers, we all come together and we talk about play. And that's where a lot of our ideas start to spark. And we meet sometimes it's once a week, sometimes it's twice a week, depending on the project. And from those conversations, we kind of, go our own way, and our own departments start doing their own things. And then we kind of come back together and say, for costumes, this is my idea. This is what I think, we should do to help, tell this story. And how does it match, and how does it line up with all the other elements of the design? It's very collaborative. And that's just the beginning, and then after those meetings, we go and we do some research, and we come back with either sketches or renderings, and we again have another discussion saying, okay, this is more fleshed out ideas. These are the colors I'm thinking. These are the silhouettes I'm thinking. And then from there, it's like, you go and you produce, and you get all the garments, whether it's you're shopping for all the things that you want. Sometimes you're building some of the items. Sometimes you're renting from, costume rental houses all over the United States, to produce and to make the 2D image that you drew come to life in a 3D way.
Hearing you talk about what goes into costumes, it really sounds like you're doing your part in terms of what the actors are wearing to tell the story. Am I understanding that correctly?
Yeah, so it's very collaborative, with, the production team, but also with the actors. The costume designer really has a really tight relationship with the actors. And sometimes a lot of the costume can be driven from just those conversations with particular actors, whether it's getting their sense of style, or, they're oftentimes in the rehearsal room discovering new things. So when we have costume fittings, it's another time for us to kind of put our two heads together and say, well, this is my idea. What are you discovering in rehearsals? And how can we achieve both of our ideas to create, this story and to tell, whatever it is that we need to tell.
We only have about a minute left here, but I want to talk and understand how many other Native people work in this industry as costume designers, and if it's not a lot, what are you doing to kind of grow more Natives in this field?
I only know one other Native costume designer, and I met him when I moved to New York about 4 years ago. And I was kind of shocked because I was like, oh, I'm going to be the only Native, costume designer. But, it's just, advocating for us and letting people know, like, this is our culture. What we do is storytell. So it's just, getting more people to understand, like, this is part of our culture, and we storytell, and we tell these things, and it's helpful when we do historical things too, because it also brings in a lot of like traditional elements, and speaking and reaching out to the Native youth too. There's productions I have that are touring, that we hope to reach to Native smaller communities, to get that idea and that spark going for them, saying, I could do something in the arts, and I don't have to be an actor, and I don't have to be in front of the cameras. There are things outside of just being an actor to be in the arts. And I think that's kind of what I like to do. And speaking to the Native youths, when I do get the opportunity with master classes or, talk backs after certain productions.
That was costume designer Raphael Regan. The Shoshone-Bannock Nation is welcoming a new bookmobile to Fort Hall, Idaho. Rosalind Yazzie has this story.
Poor reading skills are a disadvantage for students in all aspects of academic achievement. The National Center for Education Statistics reports, as of 2011, on average, American Indian and Alaska Native students scored 19 points lower in reading than non-Native students at grade 4, and 13 points lower at grade 8. To promote literacy for the community, a new bookmobile will make reading materials more accessible on the Fort Hall Reservation. The project was made possible with a grant from the Idaho Commission for Libraries. The bookmobile design is unique to the tribes, which features artwork by tribal artist Paula Topsky and wording in the Shoshone and Bannock languages. Jessica James, 477 Education Manager, is excited to see the bookmobile be a part of the community.
And so we're planning on taking the bookmobile throughout the communities here on the reservation, the district lodges, and having certain days being available for community We want to do workshops and presentations, so it's really beneficial for the community. And it all really had started with just seeing the levels of our reading scores with the youth.
This is not the first time a bookmobile has served the area. Fort Hall Business Councilman Lad Edmo recalls the memories of his childhood when a bookmobile driven by the late Delilah George used to come to his home in the Ross Fork district.
The bookmobile has a lot of purposes and uses. Educational outreach will be phenomenal with this type of bookmobile coming to the districts and letting the kids see something different. It's like brand new and way different for our kids today.
The bookmobile will be operating by mid-January. Patrons will be issued a library card to check out books. In Fort Hall, Idaho, Rosalyn Yazzie, ICT News.
And that's a slice of our Indigenous world. For all the latest, visit ictnews.org. From all of us in the newsroom, stay safe, my relatives.
The Sand Creek Massacre, the betrayal that changed Cheyenne and Arapaho people forever, focuses on tribal accounts of Colorado's deadliest day. Exhibition details at historycoloradocenter.org.
This program is made possible by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting, a private corporation funded by the American people.